Welcome to November. It is 11:11 p.m. on 11/2/2024 here on episode 578 of Dylan Knows November Reloaded. That means November started. As I said, it's November 2nd. Halloween is in the rearview mirror now and will not be back for 363 days. Well, we got a lot of stuff to look forward to and lots of stuff to talk about. We look back on Halloween 2024, all that happened here, my 13 days of Halloween experiment, which was hugely successful. We look forward to the possibility, that hopefully our democracy will survive with Election Day on Tuesday. And I don't know, we got some looks into the future of the MCU. We look back at the last 4 episodes of Agatha All Along. Spoiler, they were awesome. We talk about a couple of toxic MCU fan bases who were proven wrong again this week, twice. We talk about Fortnite's new season. We talk about corgi races. We talk about Kamala Harris. We talk about Alexandra Daddario and Margot Robbie are now MILFs. That comes out wrong, but you get what I'm talking about. A lot of anniversaries, a couple deaths, a big death, including iconic female actress. The Simpsons are doing what Pixar did. And Armie Hammer's back. Sophie Turner might have a new job. And the creators of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, and The Good Place have a new show, which looks totally awesome. That, along with all the normal bullshit, this is Dylan Lang on Dylan Knows, episode 578, November Reloaded. And to begin, as I like to do, we are going to do a taste test of 7-Up's Shirley Temple. This was my kids love Shirley Temples. They have Shirley Temples at their grandparents' house all the time. I had some when I was growing up, so I can't remember what they taste like, and I've read the reviews of it. They haven't been too bad. A lot of things for my kids. They seem to like it a lot. This is officially a pomegranate and what's the other flavor here? Cherry flavor, something like that, I guess. Pomegranate and cherry soda. But here we go. It's fine. Let's test it out. It smells a little bit like a Shirley Temple. So here we go. Pretty damn good, actually. It does have that Shirley Temple taste to it. A little bit sweeter than I thought, but I think that it goes with what one of the viewers said, is that they always drank Shirley Temples on ice, and the ice and the water and that sort of watered down the flavor. But this is good straight up, too. Oh, yeah. This is really, really good. I really like this a lot. We got one right. So fantastic. That is so good. Here's something that Dr. Pepper Blackberry, which is coming out next year, is going to be just as good. But this is amazing. Oh, my God. This is so good. So highly recommend it. If you've ever had a Shirley Temple, you can go get them now without having to get grenadine. Though grenadine and Sprite is probably going to be the better option for a real Shirley Temple. But if you don't have that stuff, this is actually a decent or on par for it. And it's probably, since it's got the holiday ball on it, it's probably only for the holidays, which sucks. As long as they bring it back next year, that'd be awesome. But yeah, that is good. Excuse me. It is caffeine free, so you'll get the jazz of caffeine on it, but it is good flavor. So definitely recommend the Shirley Temple 7-Up. Definitely, if you can find it. My Weiss is terrible. I hate the people who order the stuff at Weiss. They just don't care. But I think I got this at Food Line up in Westminster, and I think you can probably get it at Safeway down at Owings Mills also. But no, I got this at Giant. So Giant has this. So we'll get that. So perfect. So there we go. Just real quick, I'm going to talk about just briefly. It is election eve. This is the last episode before the election. Since 2016, this world has been stressful, and I think it has affected me physically and mentally right now. And I'm also prepping myself for, if the convicted felon loses, this is going to be far from over, despite the fact that he claims that he's going to go away. If he loses again, he's going to throw the same old playbook out there. He's going to declare it. If he loses, that was a rigged election. He's going to have call for recounts. He's trying to use some dirty tricks, as many as he can, to try to sway the election to him. He's going to try to get the election results sent to the Supreme Court, who he knows will overturn it against the will of the American people, and we're going to be fucked then. So that's why people are stressed and have anxiety about this election. However, a lot of good stuff is coming out of it. Early voting is higher than it was in 2020 when it was record-breaking. This is even more so. More women are voting than men at this point. It is a record-breaking early voting thing, and the Democrats are the ones who primarily early vote. So it's a pretty good deal, because the Republicans say early voting is wrong. The new poll from Iowa, which a lot of people take a look at, has Harris ahead by 3 or 4 points, which is huge for Iowa. The MAGA politicians have been losing every year, every election since 2016, when they controlled everything. Their midterms, they lost some ground. 2020 election, they lost some ground. The last midterms 2 years ago, they lost ground. So there's that. More Republicans are saying they're going to change their vote. All the kids who turned 18 between 2020 and 2024 and you can now vote in elections. And they lived through a lot of wild shit over the last 4 or 5 years with COVID and school shootings and things being as they are. And they are notoriously more Democratic, so they're going to be voting. COVID killed a bunch of Republican maggots who refused to wear masks and get their shots. So that's lessened as well. The loss of life from COVID has increased the anger of Democrats towards Republicans, because they believe that it could have easily been averted. January 6 attacks is another one that shows that the Democrats are upset. But the biggest one is when the Republicans overturned Roe versus Wade and didn't quite get the backlash that it caused. And I think even the immunity for the president that the crooked Supreme Court talked about his helping, trying to stem the tide as well. So we will see. My wife has already early voted. I will be voting on election day like I usually do. My daughter's pissed because she does not turn 18 until December. So she is going to be not able to vote in this election, but she'll be able to vote in midterms in 2 years, and then she'll be able to vote in the next presidential election in 2028. So here's hoping that everything goes according to plan. Just be aware that the convicted felon is going to declare that he won. And they're going to declare that it's rigged because they've planted all of these polls that showed him leading in all these states when actually it's not actually what's happening. It's going to take some time to count the absentee ballots and the mail-in ballots. Republicans are burning ballot boxes and breaking the law of electioneering and threatening people in line. So they know that they're going to be losing. So you just have to go out there and get the vote out. I am so sick of talking about the convicted felon and seeing his stupid face and hearing his stupid voice and all this stupid stuff. I'm getting so sick of it. And I know that this election is not going to be the end of it, even if we destroy him. He's just going to keep on going and going. Other bright side is that he should be sentenced to jail the day before Thanksgiving, because why else would they delay the sentencing to after the election in his 38 felonies, unless it's going to be jail time? Because if it was just to pay a fine or whatever, they would have just said that's what it is and you move on with your life. No, this is definitely, he's going to get jail time, as he should have gotten jail time for other things, because he's been breaking all kinds of rules over the last week or so. And as I said, I'm done talking about it. I just wanted to let people out there go out and vote. Some states still have early voting going on, but Tuesday is it. Tuesday is the day. After Tuesday, that's it. So if you don't early vote, go on Tuesday. Get your vote out there. It's your choice who you vote for. But I'm urging you, do some research. Look at what the Republicans are going to be planning if they win. The biggest ones are a complete abortion ban in every state. They've claimed, oh, we'll let the states decide. They're not going to do that anymore. They're going to say there's a ban for the entire country. They're going to deport all Mexican, Spanish-looking people, whether they are citizens or not. They look Mexican. They need to be deported. They will be put in concentration camps. They will be marked with numbers. Where have I heard this before? They're going to get rid of the pill and condoms and stuff like that. They are going to force, if you're going to have sex, you're going to have to ejaculate inside your woman, and if she gets pregnant, she has to carry it to term. Even if you're 14 years old, you will not be able to have any stuff to to protect yourselves. They're going to do a computer database of all women's cycles, so they know that no woman is secretly having an abortion or is pregnant and not telling anybody, and they'll have to keep the eye on it. Very intrusive to that. They're going to give more power to police so they can just stop and frisk a suspicious-looking black person. And if they give them any trouble, they will have every right to kill them, and Trump will give them immunity for killing an innocent person. You protest, he's going to send the armed forces against you and kill you. He's going to arrest all of his political enemies, put them on trial, or kill them in public. This is not hyperbole. This is what he's going to do. They're going to create a tariff system which is going to cause a major problem for middle class and lower people, while the rich people get to sit on tax cuts and they get more money and we get less. They're going to be cutting overtime. They will be going to a, like 160-hour month of work, and your employer can have you work like 16-hour days for 10 days, and then you can have 20 days off. But you have to work those 16 hours, and you will not get overtime. You'll get paid what they tell you get paid. They will not raise the minimum wage. The minimum wage will stay where it is, if not get lower. You will not be able to get health care. They're going to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. They're going to get rid of the CHIPS thing, which is something that brought jobs and industry to the United States. They're going to cut that. They're going to cut your Social Security. So if you're an old elderly person like my mother, whose only means of money is Social Security, they're going to cut it. You're not going to get Social Security, or they're going to cut it dramatically. So you get a ton less than you're expecting. Where's the money going to go? It's going to go in their pockets or to tax cuts for their buddies. They're going to raise taxes on the middle class, and the lower classes, they're going to have to pay more. They're going to have to work more. They're going to have, you think inflation was bad? It's going to get worse. You think gas prices are bad? It's going to get worse. You think you can't afford a place to live? It's going to get worse. They don't care about childcare. They just care about enriching themselves and controlling women and minorities, and in some cases deporting said minorities. And also be aware, Donald Trump is old. He is decrepit. He has major mental issues. He is not fit for the presidency. J.D. Vance, his vice presidential candidate, is a younger, more sadistic version of Trump and has been put in there by Putin. Trump did not want Vance to be his vice president. Putin forced him to do it. If they get elected, Vance is going to do the 25th Amendment on them, which is going to say that the president is not capable of performing his jobs and the vice president will take over as president. Then they will let him, they'll let him get away with all his crimes by banishing them, and then he can go live on a golf course and not have to worry about country. And J.D. Vance, who's a whole lot worse, and his society of white supremacist shitbag Baptist motherfuckers are going to take over the country and make it a whole lot fucking worse. Fascism, Nazism, this isn't hyperbole. If you've been paying attention, this is all real, you motherfuckers. So do the right thing. Vote blue entirely. Your life, the lives of your family and friends, your children, your parents, depends on it. That's not fucking hyperbole. Get it through your thick skull. You fucking morons. They are not for you. They are against you. You think they're going to take care of Palestine? No. Trump sides with Netanyahu, who's creating all that Palestine cleansing. And they're going to continue that. They're going to allow Putin's Russian people to overtake Ukraine and then go and take over other countries because they don't give a shit. And then you're going to wonder how this all went bad if they get elected. It's going to be your fucking fault. Vote blue all the way down. Vote blue for your representatives and your senators, because without a working Congress, Harris and Walz cannot do their job. That's all I'm going to say about that. Probably have more to say about it next weekend. Hopefully, we'll still have a country. Now, to get on a brighter side, let's talk about Halloween. Halloween was this past Thursday, and it actually was a very fun Halloween. The temperature was really nice out. It was a little bit warmer than it should be for October 31st, but at night it was pretty nice. My daughter went trick-or-treating with a friend of hers and her family in neighborhoods on the other side of town. My son had Scouts where they had a Halloween party. My wife took him to Scouts, stayed there with him, and I gave out candy. I have a little Bluetooth speaker that I use at work that I brought home on Halloween, and I played my creepy Halloween playlist, and it was absolutely awesome. I have my new inflatable up, which I put up on, I believe, on Saturday or Sunday. I think I told you the story about that, where I couldn't find my Jack Skellington one, so I bought a new 9-foot spooky tree one, and then my Jack Skellington one shit the bed and stopped working. And I put the new tree up there, and I had numerous compliments on my house, saying it was the best house in the neighborhood that I won Halloween. They had people taking pictures in front of their inflatables, and everybody's asking me about my Ravens Pumpkin one inflatable as well. I got to talk to one of my neighbors I hadn't ever met before, a couple doors down. It was really nice to talk to her. Saw a lot of really good kids. Had some nice teenagers come up and say, "Do you give candy to teenagers?" And I say, "Hell yes, I do." And I absolutely do. If you don't have a costume on and you want candy, or you are 18, 19 years old and still trick-or-treating, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep giving you candy, because that's what Halloween's all about. Giving candy to everybody. It doesn't matter. We had a decent crowd, not as big as it used to be when we first moved here 20 years ago. That could be a whole bunch of different things, different religious people who don't celebrate Halloween, people who don't have children or people who just don't like decorating for Halloween or giving away candy, maybe against a religion or just don't want to do it, that's fine. The houses on both sides of me did not have Halloween stuff up. The ones on my one side, their cars were gone the whole night till later in the evening after Halloween was over with. And then the other house next to us, they took their kids out of the neighborhood. I don't know where they took them to. So there was that. So we had some houses decorated. There wasn't as many as I'd seen in the past before. And again, I also blame the climate over the last 10 years, 10, 9, 8 years. The way things are being, having to deal with horrible things 24/7 from the convicted felon and his MAGA assholes. It could be, but we had a decent number of people. I bought 3 of the big giant candy bags, and 2.5 of them were used, so that was good. Earlier in the day, we had our costume contest at work, and now for like the 6th or 7th year in a row, 6th year in a row, I have not won. To be fair, 2 of those years we didn't do the Halloween costume contest, and that's all right. And I hate the new voting system they put in place. They added a prize, but everybody only got 1 vote now. So a lot more people did group costumes, and they all got a vote, even though they were only one costume. But everyone in that group got to vote. So the ones that won were all groups. They didn't even do a third place one because all the votes were tied for second place. So for second place, they just added more money so they could have 2 second place prizes and the first place prize. The 2 second place prizes were 2 sisters who, one dressed up as a piñata and the other dressed up as a person hitting the piñata. Every time they hit the piñata, the sister dressed as a piñata threw candy. So there's a group. So that was the piñata group. That was who you would pick for if you wanted them to win. You would just write piñata people, and that would be your 1 vote. And then they had 2 votes. So of course they voted for themselves. So right then and there, if you didn't vote for them, you voted for yourself, and they voted for them. They have 2 votes. You only have 1, unless someone else who isn't dressed up and not in your group voted for you. The other second place prize was the Minions. There were 3 people in that group, so it was Gru and the Minions, I should say. So they had 3 votes compared to the 1 vote that I had of myself, and then if anyone else voted for me, whatever. So that makes sense why I came in 4th, as I said, tied for 4th, with like 20 other people. And then the first place prize was a duo who were Beetlejuice and Lydia, and they won the first prize. To be fair, their costumes were awesome, and I was going to, if we were able to vote for more than 1 person, I would have voted for them also. So they did win, but again, they had 2 votes right off the bat. So I'm not happy with the way the voting goes, but I was happy with the fact that we had like 20 people dressed up, which was really cool. And it was a whole bunch of disparate stuff. We had a couple of clowns, we had a Joker, we had the Gru and the Minions, we had a piñata, we had a drunk leprechaun, we had a witch. What else do we have? And I was the Great Pumpkin. I had a giant pumpkin head on and a pumpkin suit, and I gave out candy as well. And what else did we have? We had a woman who was running an ice cream stand, which was awesome also. I love that too. We had someone who was a bed of flowers, which was cute, but it was like, okay. And what else did we have? I'm trying to remember. Those are really the only ones that I remember off the top of my head. So it was entertaining Halloween, and I was just happy that so many people got dressed, and we had pizza for lunch, which was good. And it was a week. Excuse me. Let's see. I also was overwhelmed with how good my 13 days of Halloween experiment went. I gained a new subscriber. Thank you for subscribing. My views went skyrocketing, double digits every one. except for maybe one or two, but the majority of them were in their 20s and 30s in views, which was outstanding. My daughter did her first show, and she has, I think last I saw, was stuck at 28 views. I think she still is there. But I had a ton of traffic on my page, which is awesome. Yep, she's stuck at 28. Yep. So, yep, here is, let's just go down that real quick. My daughter's was 28. Then I did 21, 21, 6, 12, 31, 10, 11, 7, 35, 13, 21, and 30. Those were all my, so pretty decent for me. Yeah, there were a couple ones that are about normal for what I do, which was fine but I was also posting so many every day that I can understand maybe a few got lost in the shuffle. But very proud of that. Very proud of my daughter for how well she did and how interesting her show was. Very proud of getting the 1 subscriber, and I was very happy with how it worked out. So we'll see what happens. I got more lists coming up. I don't have 12 Days of Christmas. I'm not going to do that, but I do have a bunch of Christmas ones I am going to do. Hopefully I have a Thanksgiving one I'm going to do. I better get my ass in gear if I want to do an election one, best political movies. But I got to do that within the next couple of days. Get that all organized up and taken care of. So we'll see about that. And finally, the other big thing that more of an anniversary, personal anniversary myself, and this might be TMI, too much information, but on October 31st, 1994, 30 years ago, I became a man, as it were, and I lost my virginity to my girlfriend, and she lost her virginity to me at the same time on Halloween night in 1994. So it's been 30 years, 30-year anniversary of me losing my virginity. So I was thinking a little bit about that also. And looked up my ex, who's on Facebook, but she very rarely posts anything. So just sort of look through it on the anniversary, just as a remembrance, kind of. But honestly, to be fair, 30 years ago, I don't remember. I remember bits and pieces of what happened, but I don't remember much about the actual event itself, as it were. So that's all I'm going to say about that. This weekend also was the new Fortnite season, and it's the OG season since the month of November is the small little window between the last chapter and the last season and the new chapter coming up in December. So they have to fill this 1 month period with something. So last year they did the OG season 1, where all the OG season 1 locations appeared for 3 weeks, and some changed up here and there. And you had the OG season 1 weapons, and you had a mini battle pass of 100. You did 50. And it was okay. And then when we got excited to hear that it was going to be a season 2, which is when I started playing the game, chapter 2, BAP, season 1, 2, and 3, which was I started playing chapter 2, season 2. And so we got the map back, but they decided to remix it. So in the original OG season last year, all the stuff that we got, the sprinting and the mantling and the swimming and stuff like that, were disabled because they didn't have that in the original OG season. With this remix of season 2 or chapter 2, season 2, 1, 2, 3, you still have those now, the swimming, the mantling, and the sprinting and the sliding. That were not in chapter 2, but they decided doing the remix, and they've made it more of a music theme, where all the big bosses that we dealt with in the first 3 seasons are now going to be musicians, which is kind of meh. We have Snoop Dogg, another Eminem collab, and Ice Spice. So it's not quite exactly what I was looking forward to, and the battle pass is actually kind of ass, to be honest. Just remixes like of characters we already have, and they're just sort of The remixes of some of the popular lobby music is remixed into these new like terrible like electronic sort of stuff, which I hate. So just kind of a meh on everything. But it was fun going back to chapter 2 island, which is where I started, and playing with my son. And we were getting excited seeing the old locations and seeing how things were, but it seemed a little bit different than I was used to. and it was still good, and I'm still going to keep playing it, and I've done pretty good so far. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. I did buy Snoop Dogg, so I do have the Snoop Dogg skin. What the hell is that? I hate when I can't read my writing. Oh well. Garrett Dillahunt has been cast in Lanterns as a bad guy, so they're continuing to get new casting coming involved with that. Snow has hit Hawaii in the mountains, Colorado, Minnesota, and Arizona and Oregon. So snow is starting to really moving along here a little bit. Rumor has it that every episode of Stranger Things, the final season, is going to be a 2-hour-long episode, which would put it basically at 16 hours of content to finish the season, because it'll be eight episodes, 2 hours each. So we'll see if that actually comes true. The Dodgers won the World Series. Hooray! Who cares? But they did. So baseball's finally over, which is good. I talked last week about how Netflix seems to be turning into another version of Hallmark, with all these Hallmark-esque Christmas movies that they've been putting on lately. They will be putting on in the next couple of weeks, including the Lindsay Lohan one. Well, apparently they have a reason that they're doing that, because Hallmark has decided to allow them the rights to air a number of their older Hallmark Christmas movies that are not on their channel now. So some of the older ones that they've been trying to excise, I guess, out of their catalog are now going to find their way to Netflix. So you can watch your Hallmark Christmas movies on Netflix as well. Not all of them, as I said, but you get a nice handful of them coming up. It says Thin Club Burn. No idea what this is. That sucks. I can't read my handwriting. Game of Thrones is set to get a movie, 5 or 6 years after the season ended. So I don't know if they're going to try to fix the ending, as it were, or just be hey, this is what's happening to our characters, despite the fact that George R.R. Martin has not written a new novel in close to 20 plus years. And he hasn't written, but he just claims he's writing it, but he has not released it yet. So I guess they're just going to create their own stories and stuff like that. So George R.R. Martin is going to have nothing to do with it. So, okay. And John Krasinski is reprising his role as Jack Ryan from his Jack Ryan show on Prime. They're going to be doing movies now, but they're not going to be adapting any of the Tom Clancy ones, because I guess you really can't now, because they are all sort of a product of their time. So you really can't do that. 28 years later, the sequel to the zombie stuff has finished production, and Ralph Fiennes, who's in the cast, has announced also that they actually filmed 2 movies back to back, and they're both finished production. So it means that there is another 28 Days Later movie, a sequel or whatever to the 28 Years Later, coming out soon after. 28 Years Later comes out, I believe, next year. So that's interesting for the fans of that. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the animated special, which has been on CBS seems like forever, has a new home now. It is going back to NBC, where it debuted in 1964 and was on NBC till 1971, when CBS bought it and took it over. But now NBC has the rights back just in time for the 60th anniversary, and they will be airing it on December 6th, which is the exact date 60 years earlier that it premiered it for the first time ever. So Rudolph will be moving to NBC next year, or not next year, in 2 months. Mount Fuji has had its first snowless October in 130 years. Climate change doesn't exist. Whatever. Twilight of the Dead, Mila Jovovich to star in George Romero's last zombie film. So that's good for her. Tom Cruise is in talks to develop a Days of Thunder sequel. So he's making another sequel to another Tony Scott film without Tony Scott, who passed away. If it's close to Top Gun Maverick style. It might be good, but I was never a big fan of Days of Thunder nor of Top Gun. Days of Thunder is basically Top Gun, but with race cars. So I don't know what exactly you would do, but okay, you be you, man. Some online pranksters thought it'd be a great joke to convince people in Dublin that there was a massive Halloween party and thousands of people showed up to this party that did not exist. So got to give them credit for that. It was kind of cool. Pinocchio, the Pinocchio horror film. So, as I said, nothing is sacred anymore. We had the Winnie the Pooh serial killer. We've got the Steamboat Willie serial killer. We've got the Seven Dwarfs serial killers. So morons think it's funny to put childhood favorites and turn them into serial killer slashers, which is just stupid. But it's a new trend that I guess is doing okay. I mean, they even did a Grinch slasher movie also. The newest one is they're doing a Pinocchio horror film, which is funny because they've already done a Pinocchio horror film years ago. But this is a new Pinocchio horror film with Robert Englund and Richard Burke. And the puppet looks stupid. And it's another stupid thing to do. Something that isn't stupid is Death Note, the anime that is hugely popular. And my daughter has watched it all and read the manga. Loves it. Is actually going to be getting an Among Us-esque video game where you are trying to figure out what's what and who's going on, stuff like that. So that'll be coming to PlayStation and PC. The 1998 N64 classic system will be coming back out in 2025, so you'll be able to play your old N64 video games. 3 Hitmen and a Baby is in development. So instead of 3 men and a baby, it's 3 hitmen and a baby. Jason Kelsey smashes the cell phone of a punk-ass Penn State shitbag after he insulted Kelsey's brother and used a homophobic slur. And rumor has it that, first of all, Jason was in the right to not take that shit from a punk-ass little bitch from Penn State, which is a punk-ass little bitch college. But you can't lose your cool and you can't damage personal property. But the kid did use a slur and insulted your family. But rumor has it that he used the same slur back to the guy. So not sure what exactly happened or how it's going to affect his ESPN career or even his podcast stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. But that is a big story here. Kate Siegel and David Dastmalchian are set to star in a zombie film called Epilogue, which is going to be produced by Mike Flanagan. And it takes place a year after the zombie apocalypse has ended. And it follows a couple who is trying to find a cure to their infected daughter. So it actually sounds like a pretty decent type of film. So we'll see what happened. Thin Club Barn. Them Cluck Browns. I don't know what that says, so I'm just going to ignore that. That's really annoying me. Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. So, but the big death that happened this week is Terri Garr passed away. Terri Garr was a fantastic actress, supporting actress, whatever. Been in some of the biggest movies and TV shows of all time. She might be best known for Young Frankenstein, which she starred in with Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder. She was also in Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton, written by John Hughes. She had MS, so I think she passed away from that. She played Phoebe's mom on Friends for like 6 or 7 episodes. She was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. She was a dancer in 6 Elvis movies. Fun Acapulco, Kissing Cousins View Las Vegas, Pajama Party, Clam Bake. She was in The Conversation with Gene Hackman, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. She was in Oh God. I forgot she was in Oh God. She was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. She was in The Black Stallion, the original from 1979, and the sequel that came out a little later. She was in Tootsie, The Sting 2, Mr. Mom, After Hours, which is a great Scorsese movie also. The Player, she played herself. Mom and Dad Saved the World. I remember that. She was in Dumb and Dumber. She was in Pret-a-Porter. She was in Michael. She was in Dick. I remember that also. She was in Batman Beyond, The Return of the Joker. She voiced Mary McGinnis, who was the mother of the new Batman. She was in Ghost World. And then on television, and so she did Friends already. She was in an episode of the 1966 Batman. She was in Andy Griffith. She was in an episode of Star Trek, the original series. She's in 6 episodes of McCloud. She was a recurring role in the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour. She was on the Bob Newhart Show, the original one, for 2 episodes. She was in the TV show MASH for 2 episodes, the popular one. She was in The Odd Couple for an episode. Maude for an episode. She hosted Saturday Night Live 5 times. She was in Fairy Tale Theater. Sesame Street. She was in Sesame Street. She was in a Tales from the Crypt episode. She was in a Dream On episode. She was in a Murphy Brown episode and a Larry Sanders episode. She was in Celebrity Jeopardy. She was a voice in Duckman. She was in an episode of Frasier. Episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Friends. She was in 3 episodes as Phoebe's mom. She was in ER. She was in Dr. Katz. She was in Batman Beyond. She said she had 10 episodes where she voiced the mother of the main character. She was in Felicity. And she was in Law and Order Special Victims Unit. So she's done a lot of stuff, and the world is less without her. Anniversaries, have a load of them here. Nirvana's MTV Unplugged was also 30 years ago this week. American Gangster came out 17 years ago this week. The Bone Collector came out 25 years ago this week. Red Dead Redemption 2, the video game, came out 6 years ago. The Walking Dead debuted 14 years ago on Halloween. And that's it for this page. Also, 2 of the most sexiest actresses out there, Margot Robbie and Alexandra Daddario, had both become moms. Alexandra Daddario became a mom on Halloween. She gave birth to her first child on Halloween. And Margot Robbie became a mom today, 11/2/2024, of a baby boy. So they are now MILFs, as it were. We're not going to say that anymore, are we? What the hell? What the hell did I write there? Oh, took me a second. A sprawling Mayan city with palaces and pyramids was discovered in a dense Mexican forest by a doctoral student. God, I couldn't read my own handwriting. So it's always interesting when doctoral students find and discover stuff that regular scientists have been searching for years and their whole life. Same thing happened to a new NASA person who started working at NASA and like 3 days later discovered a planet. So kind of interesting. All right, I covered that. Oh, the Rainmaker TV show starts production. God, this whole page looks like it's terrible. The Hole is a horror film. Casts the actor Theo James. Uh, Bendy and the Ink Machine, which was one of my son's favorite horror video games, and was obsessed with the toys and dressed as Bendy for a number of times, is getting a movie from a Norwegian director. Don't know if it's going to be animated or if it's going to be live action, but it's an interesting story idea about a cartoonist who had a popular cartoon like the 1930s and 40s. And then something happened where the cartoon came to life, whatever, and there was like satanic stuff. And so now the studio is all boarded up, so like that, but it's all kind of creepy, and there's all kinds of ink monsters and the beings still. It's just crazy shit, man. It's wild, crazy stuff. It's going to be a cool movie if and when it does come out there. A new Godzilla film officially announced from the director of Godzilla -1. So assuming it's a sequel to -1, but he did announce it this week. California man who won $44 million in one of the lotteries, like the Mega Millions or whatever, still has not gotten, his $44 million or even his payout yet from the lottery yet. Anthony Ramos and Ben Mendelsohn have been cast in the Mole People remake of the 1950s B movie out there. So they've been cast in the remake that's coming. Oh my God, I gotta stop yawning. Excuse me. Yeah, it's not gonna be one of my better episodes. I can tell you that right now. Full contact escape rooms is a new thing, apparently. Apparently, you sign a waiver and stuff, and you can be tased. You can be put in a body bag and dragged around and all kinds of other stuff. So instead of just, being physical stuff in an escape room, you're going to have all kinds of weird stuff happen to you. So it's a thing that's out there now, and it's kind of weird. The new Star Wars TV show Skeleton Crew released a new trailer. It's set to debut December 3rd. Still looks good to me. Jude Law's in it, but it does focus on a bunch of young kids. It seems like Voyager, but with young kids. And Jude Law plays the adult who's going to get them home. I can already guarantee you the toxic fan base is going to hate this show and are going to try to force it to cancel. They're going to review bomb it and stuff like that. So I already can pick that out. So something's got to be done about that because of just bullshit. Deadpool Wolverine is set to debut on Disney Plus on November 12th. The official Simpsons NFL broadcast during the Bengals-Cowboys Monday Night Football game in December. So I think it was a year or two or so ago when Pixar on Disney Plus did a Toy Story version of the Jaguars game, Falcons game in London at 9:30 in the morning. So they were it was a live stream of it, but it was done with Pixar characters instead, and it was really wild because they were almost in sync with the football people live. So it was a live broadcast on Disney Plus. So the Simpsons apparently are doing an episode of this now too. Don't know how it's going to work. Haven't heard much about it, but it is during the Bengals Cowboys Monday night game sometime in December. I guess we'll get more information when it becomes available. Eve Ridley has joined the cast of the new Supergirl movie, I think playing the other lead opposite the Supergirl. Ridley Scott is apparently developing a new Alien movie. Okay. Mango Rush Mountain Dew is coming next year, but it will be a Little Caesars exclusive, and the flavor is supposed to be sweet mango heat. So sounds absolutely disgusting to me, but Little Caesars will be getting their own Mountain Dew flavor. Daft Punk are bringing back their old school anime that came out back around the turn of the century, I guess, when they were huge, and now it's coming back. Speaking of anime, Haikyuu, the dumpster battle movie, is now on Crunchyroll. Haikyuu is about a high school volleyball team, and it basically got my wife and daughter and us and me and my son slightly through COVID. my daughter had started reading manga right around 2020 and was really getting into it. And that's back when we had a library book. So we'd go to the library like every week or every couple of weeks, and she would just grab all the manga off there and read it all stuff. We'd have to return it. So one of the ones that she really absolutely loved was Haikyuu. And my wife got involved, started reading it also. And then there was the anime. So we were able to get the DVDs, stuff like that, and watch that. But right when lockdown happened for the kids, we had a bunch of library books that weren't supposed to return for a couple weeks of Haikyuu that we kept until we can return them a year or so later. And because it had multiple issues and new ones were coming out every few months, I decided to get as many as I could. So lockdown for the kids happened on the 13th of March, and I was furloughed on the like the 23rd or 24th of March. So the day I was furloughed, I went to Barnes and Noble because stuff hadn't fully shut down yet. COVID was just really starting to get started, and everything hadn't fully shut down yet. So I went to Barnes and Noble and I bought a ton of the more recent Haikyuu so they could get caught up, and then kept an eye on Amazon and bought more from Amazon to because we couldn't go to Barnes and Noble, and to get that to them, and they read it and stuff like that. We watched the anime and were able to follow everything. So they had a season 4, which they never released the dub of, which the dub is fantastic for it, but they never released the dub. So they do have the season 4, but you have to listen to it in the original Japanese. And then they were going to wrap up the series with 2 movies. The first one is Haikyuu, The Dumpster Battle, and it came out in movie theaters like a year or so ago, but didn't really come up around here. And now Crunchyroll has the rights to it, so my wife and daughter want to watch it. Haikyuu's manga is now over. We have every issue of it, even the ones we got at the library. Once we returned them, I bought the regular copies for us to keep so they can refer back to it. So that's it. That's on Crunchyroll now, so they're excited about that. First look at Welcome to Derry, the show about the history of Pennywise, and looks pretty interesting. Looks like you're going to go through different time periods and hit some of the stuff that was mentioned in the original It that did not get covered in the movies. So, Sonic is released their holiday drink menu. They're going to have a red velvet cake batter milkshake. They're going to have a sparkly sugar cookie Dr. Pepper, which actually sounds intriguing to me, but you only get it at Sonic. And they're also going to have a buttery brew, I guess like a butterbeer sort of thing. So that's interesting. I don't know where the closest Sonic is. I thought the restaurant up here was Sonic, but it's not Checkers. I think there's a Sonic by my work. So I might be able to pick up one of those. Megalopolis is set to be on video on demand also on November 12th. Outbreak is a horror video game that's going to be being made into a movie. Voyager 1 has transmitted a message using a transmitter that has not transmitted since 1981. It's kind of intriguing. We got the Squid Game Season 2 teaser, debuted this week also. Actually, the second teaser for it is set to debut on Boxing Day, December 26th. After this World Series, Bob Costas said that he's going to retire from Major League Baseball play-by-play after 44 years of doing it. In the last 5 World Series, a Will Smith has won it. They're not the same guy. I think maybe the 2020 and the 2024 Will Smith on the Dodgers is the same guy, but there are, in between them, are 3 other Will Smiths on separate teams that all won the World Series. So that's kind of an interesting little stat. And this is pencil me into a kind of don't know what they're going to do or odd idea. They're great directors, but I don't know what they're going to do. Stop yawning. Jake Kasdan, Patty Jenkins, and Joe Cornish have all signed on to direct a different live-action Lego movie. Now, the computer-generated ones I can maybe understand because those are easy to do. It's Lego, stuff like that. How are you going to do a live-action Lego movie? And to get these three kind of biggish directors to do it, how are you going to do it? I don't know. I really couldn't tell you what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. Another death this week, Greg Hildebrandt, who is a painter and a comic book artist. He was the guy who painted the iconic original Star Wars poster. He passed away this week, but he was also a comic book artist, did covers and did some stuff on the inside like that. Anniversaries, Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal debuted 10 years ago this week. Terminator Dark Fate debuted 5 years ago this week. The Holdovers debuted 1 year ago this week. And Simpsons Treehouse of Horror season fifth volume, which had The Shining, the Nightmare Cafeteria, and the 3D Homer, debuted 30 years ago this week. That was the same week I lost my virginity. So interesting. That was that one. So it was pretty cool. I forgot to tell you all that it is now 12:07 a.m. and tonight, before you go to bed, Saturday into Sunday, I should say, because you might be watching this a day later or whatever. But don't forget to turn your clocks back before you go to bed tonight. 2 a.m. The clocks will go from 2 to 2:59, and they'll go back to 2 o'clock again. So that means that it'll be light during the day, in the morning, and it'll be dark in the afternoon. So we've got that coming up here. So don't forget to do that. Obviously, your cell phones and computer phone clocks will change on their own, but change your microwaves, your ovens, your alarm clocks on the side of your bed if you have one, unless they change by themselves also. But I don't have one. My wife doesn't have one. We have to change it physically. And then don't forget to change it in your car either. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's actually not that hard if you know what you're doing. Tomorrow, or I should say later today, it's 12:08 a.m., so it's physically November 3rd now. So about 13 hours from now, the Ravens will be playing the Broncos in Baltimore. Ravens suffered a humiliating loss to the 1-6, or excuse me, the 2-6, the 1-6 Browns. But there's a whole other story about that. Deshaun Watson, who is a cancer on that team, injured himself, is out for the year, and they brought in a veteran, Jameis Winston, who threw for 300 yards, for over 300 yards, gave them more than 20 points and a bunch of touchdowns and no interceptions. And Deshaun Watson did not do any of that this year. It's the same sort of situation that happened last year when Deshaun Watson hurt himself. He was playing terribly. They weren't playing that well, and then he got injured, and then Joe Flacco came in, and they tore up the last half of their season. So I'm thinking the same thing's going to happen here. It just so happened the Ravens were the ones to do that because it was a cancer that was excised. So the team didn't like him, so now he's down. That they have a guy they like. Coaches can coach him. He listens to the coaches, whereas Deshaun Watson didn't. The fans can be happier because they hated this. They hated him, really. And they also lost their long-time play-by-play guy the same day. So it was destined for them to win that one. So the Ravens were humiliated, so they need to come back and win this one. But they're playing in Baltimore, and then they have a quick turnaround. They also play on Thursday night as well. But I bring this up not just because talk about that, but because halftime of the game in 13 hours is going to be corgi races. Yes, they're going to race corgis on the field at M&T Bank Stadium, which I think is really, really cool. So if you want to go down the game later today, if you got tickets, whatever, you will be entertained with corgi races at halftime. So that should be awesome. I really like that. So this is an interesting thing. Did you know kids in Des Moines, Iowa will trick or treat on Halloween for the first time since 1936. No, it's not some sort of weird religious thing. Des Moines, Iowa, their Halloween is actually the night before Halloween, usually the 30th of October, that they call Beggar's Night. I think in 1936, they wanted to get away from the evil connotations with Halloween and other aspects as well. So they decided to create this holiday. They're the only ones that do it. Even in Iowa, I think they're the only city that does it. So they did not trick or treat on Halloween forever since 1936 until this year. They trick or treated on Halloween for the first time ever since 1936. Not because there's a change, but because a severe weather storm came through on the 30th and washed out Halloween, their Beggar's Night. And they wanted to do it, so the next logical day was October 31st on Halloween. So Beggar's Night actually happened on Halloween this year. So I don't know if that's going to change things for them now. They saw how much fun they had doing on Halloween with everybody else. Or maybe they like being, their own people. But Beggar's Night for the first time since 1936 was on Halloween. Emily the Strange is getting a feature film adaptation from the Moana writer. Again, don't know if it's animated or live action. Emily the Strange was a graphic novel that I was very familiar with when I worked at Diamond in the early part of 2000. It was a hugely popular graphic novel, and you can probably find a lot of her stuff at like those types of gothish sort of stores at the mall and stuff like that have like anime characters. And I can't think of the names right now because my brain just isn't working right. It's after midnight and I'm tired. Taylor Kitsch and Betty Gilpin are set to star in American Prime Evil, a Western for Netflix set to debut on January 9th. And we got our first poster of it. It's a badass poster, actually. It looks really, really cool. So don't know much about it, except that it's a Western. It's called American Prime Evil, which is an interesting title. And then the cover, the poster itself is really, really cool. Apparently, there's a movie called F, Marry, Kill. Obviously, Fuck, Marry, Kill. It's a horror film that's on the trailer for it. So I didn't watch it because it didn't interest me, but it looks like it's the typical sort of trailer sort of thing, but it's called F, Marry, Kill. Seinfeld Complete Series is coming to Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray in December. Never been a real huge fan of Seinfeld, but I know there are a bunch of people out there now. And if you want to upgrade your copies of the show, you can now have a Blu-ray and a 4K coming up. Kelly MacDonald has also joined Lanterns as a potential love interest for Hal Jordan, but it is not going to be Star Sapphire or Carol Ferris. Instead, it's going to be some local teacher just in a small town or whatever that apparently gets to run afoul of Hal, or Hal is now located there and runs into her and all that stuff. So potential love interest there. She's around the same age as the actor who they picked to play Hal, so it'll probably turn out to be a romantic thing. Great Value is a generic brand at the grocery store. They have a Wicked mac and cheese based on the movie Wicked, which comes out in about 3 weeks. And it will turn your macaroni and cheese either green or pink because of the green for the Wicked Witch of the West and pink for Glinda the Good Witch. So I just don't know about eating pink or green macaroni and cheese. Though, to be fair, I was a guy that absolutely loved the green ketchup that Heinz put out a while back. I'm not big a fan of the purple one, which just made things look weird, but the green one actually wasn't too bad. So who am I to judge? Marvel released a teaser trailer for all its upcoming TV shows. And we got our first look at Daredevil, Ironheart, which is set to debut June 24th. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man animated show is set to debut January 29th. Eyes of Wakanda, Marvel Zombies animated series. And we got our first look at Wonder Man, which is set to debut in December of next year. So kind of interesting to see all that. So it was a fun look at that. A Trick or Treat sequel based on the movie is set to get a graphic novel, and Michael Dougherty says that he has ideas for a sequel to the movie as well. So we'll see if it's not just the same thing. We'll see what happens. Channing Tatum and Zoe Kravitz have broken up after 3 years of being together. Jessica Chastain, Brendan Fraser, Bryan Cranston, and Al Pacino have all joined Assassination, which is the Barry Levinson, local boy, directed movie, and Oscar Award-winning director Barry Levinson's film about the John F. Kennedy assassination. That's a killer cast to begin with right now, so that could be one to keep an eye out. It probably won't be out till next year. Ke Huy Quan is slowly going to become a huge deal next year after winning the Oscar last year. He's and then playing in Loki 2 last year as well. He is now getting into the movies, so it takes a while for movies to get made, blah, blah, blah. He is set to star, he signed up to star in a movie called Fairy Tale in New York, where he plays a cab driver who is trying to finish his work shift on Christmas Eve so he can go spend time with his estranged son. And he has a perfect present for his estranged son. But then someone steals the best present he had for his estranged son, and he can't go to see his estranged son without a good gift in his eyes. So he has to go after the guys who stole his great present, and it's going to become like a Jackie Chan sort of action film. That's why he looks like he's turning into a Jackie Chan, which is cool. Jackie Chan had a huge successful career in the 90s and early 2000s where he played these sort of crazy comedic kung fu sort of movies, and Ke Huy Quan looks like he's going to be filling that role pretty good because he's got another one which I'm going to talk about in a little bit coming up here soon. Black Dove's trailer, Keira Knightley Netflix film set to debut December 5th. We had the trailer this week. Sophie Turner, Emma Corrin, Lucy Boynton, and Mackenzie Davis are all testing for the live-action Tomb Raider Prime series. I think Sophie Turner would be really good in that role, but they are testing to see if they'll take over the role of Lara Croft. Paddington in Peru trailer, the newest one of that came out this week. It's what you expect. Greta Gerwig's Narnia films could get an IMAX release if Netflix allows it. Greta Gerwig is directing not all of them, but at least 2 to 3 of the Chronicles of Narnia films remakes that she's involved with. Netflix has decided to pay for them with the same stipulations as it'll get a quick release in theaters so it can get Oscar nominations and stuff like that. And then it'll come to Netflix where it will stay in order to try to get people to come to Netflix and have Netflix subscriptions. But because movie theaters are very excited about the Chronicles of Narnia movies that Greta Gerwig hasn't even started on yet, but will be shortly, they are pushing Netflix to allow IMAX productions of the Chronicles of Narnia so they can be shown in IMAX theaters. But in order to do that, you need to have it in theaters for more than a few days or for a week or whatever. You need to have it in for a couple weeks to make it worth their while to pay for the IMAX stuff. So we'll see. That's to be continued, but that's interesting. A 6.0 earthquake has hit off the coast of Oregon. Again, there's a lot of activity happening out on the West Coast. That's the second one in Oregon in the last couple of weeks. There's been a ton in California, 3 or 4 over periods of 3 or 4 months. And it seems like it could be normal, just earth movements and stuff like that. But it just seems rather odd that all of a sudden all of these are starting to hit. And some of them are pretty big. 6.0 is not one to sneeze at. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Invisible Raptor trailer starring Sean Astin is about a hyper-intelligent invisible raptor that gets loose and starts attacking people. Sounds like a really B-movie-esque thing, and they got Sean Astin to do it. It's like, man, okay. You do it. You do you. The last Blockbuster that had been open forever has now closed its doors. It closed on Halloween night. So there are no more open Blockbusters in the country at this moment. Army Hammer, who got into a little bit of trouble about 2 or 3 years ago when I think it's something to do with he claimed to be a cannibal or something. I'm not exactly sure, but he was dropped hard by lots of film productions. People lashed out at him. He sort of disappeared for a while. He is set to return in a new movie co-starring with Thomas Jane. It is a Western from the producers of Bone Tomahawk, so they're expecting a pretty decent thing. So we'll see if Army Hammer can get his life back in order. More football stuff. The Baltimore Ravens picked up Deontay Johnson in a trade with the Panthers. He's a wide receiver. Trade deadline is on Monday, so we could use a lot more defensive help or pass rush. I'd like to get you Davey and Clowney back from the Panthers as well to let him come up and help us with that, but we'll see what happens. What our GM is up to and what we've got planned and what we can offer. So we'll see what happens. We do have wide receiver depth now, and a lot of people say it was got it for a steal. We got it for a 6th round draft pick or a 5th round draft pick or something like that. So some they say is basically a steal. Okay. One of my daughter and wife's, and even mine somewhat, but I didn't watch a couple of them. But what they like to do is they like to watch binge entire series on Netflix or Prime or whatever. And the most recent one they're doing right now is they're watching Community now. They're on season 4 right now of Community. So they binge watch it when they can. Watch 3 or 4 episodes a night when they can. This all started back when my daughter heard about Brooklyn Nine-Nine and she wanted to watch it. So we were able to get it. And I watched it with them, and me, my wife, and my daughter watched every episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine and loved it. And then they moved on to The Good Place, which is also from the creators of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which was also, I watched most of those, but I missed a number of episodes. I like to go back and watch those because it was a really good show and I enjoyed it a lot. Had a great ending to it as well. That starred Ted Danson, and it was phenomenal. And then they jumped to Parks and Rec, and they watched all of that. Those 3 were all productions by Michael Schur. And then they jumped to Community, which has nothing to do with any of those, but I just mentioned that. But I found out this week when it was released by Netflix that Netflix is going to have a new Michael Schur TV show, but on Netflix instead of on network. It's called A Man on the Inside, and it stars Ted Danson and Stephanie Beatrice from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I watched the trailer for it, and it looks adorable. It looks fantastic. It looks like another hit. It's set to debut on Netflix on November 21st. Since it is Netflix, they'll probably release all episodes at one time, and it is on Netflix, so that'll be a lot of fun to watch. But the basic premise, it looks like, is Ted Danson is a widower whose children are all grown up, and he's just sort of puttering around in his house by himself, just doing his own thing, and his kids are worried about him. So he sees a shrink or a doctor or whatever, and they say, you need to get active a little bit. Will you do this for me? He said he will. So he goes and maybe looks for a part-time job or whatever and finds a job to be an assistant to a private investigator. So he applies for it, and he was the right age also, and she accepted him. And she said that her client had a fancy family heirloom necklace stolen from this retirement village, and she needs a man on the inside to see if he can do some legwork for her to try to figure out who might be the thief who stole the necklace. So Ted Danson said, sure, I'll do that. So she gets him to go to this retirement village where, as expected, he, meets a lot of new people, hangs out with a lot of new people, and becomes friends with a whole lot of new people. And now he's got to deal with spying on his new friends and also living his best life and having a second chance at life sort of thing. Stephanie Beatrice plays one of the administrators of the retirement village, and a role completely different than her Rosa on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So it should be a lot of fun. It looks really good. I want to watch it. I know my daughter and my wife want to watch it, so we'll get to that. I'm just going to hit this real quick because I'm going to talk a little bit about Marvel here in a little bit. Oh yeah, I forgot to do my last Ravens thing. Art Modell, who moved the Ravens from Cleveland, and has not gotten into the Hall of Fame. He deserves it, not only for giving Baltimore back football, but he was one of the guys that helped create Monday Night Football and has done a whole bunch of stuff for the NFL and should be in the Hall of Fame. Has made it to the next level of voting. Now, here's where things get. He's been up for Hall of Fame forever, and he never gets in because the Cleveland press people, who are one of the people that votes on it, they refuse to vote for him to get into the Hall of Fame. So other people who get more votes are able to get in around him because they're still pissed. 96, 30, no, not even 30, 20, 28 years later, they're still pissed that the Browns moved to Baltimore, despite the fact that 3 years after we moved, they got a team. It took us 13 years to get a new team, and we had to have a team move to Baltimore. The NFL was not going to give us a team. They gave – oh, that's my cat. They gave the Cleveland Browns – that's my cat. They gave the Cleveland Browns a brand new team 3 years later after the team moved. Again, it took them 13 years to get a team to Baltimore, and they didn't even help any. In fact, they tried to stop it. So here they are 28 years later, and they're still pissed about it. So they're refusing to allow Art Modell into the Hall of Fame because of that. However, this Cleveland Browns expansion team has been horribly run. It has only made the playoffs like twice in their 25-year run of being a team. Only made the playoffs maybe twice and have not even made a Super Bowl yet. And they just seem to be a snake-bitten team. The whole Deshaun Watson thing, the whole Johnny Football thing. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that they did that they've been a snake-bitten team. And when they look like they're getting better, something happens and they F it up. And I truly believe that it's karma coming at them for not allowing Art Modell into the Hall of Fame because he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So, Cleveland guys, if you want things to straighten up in Cleveland, I would recommend you get Art Modell into the Hall of Fame. You do that, your karma will be paid for, and the Cleveland Browns might make it to the Super Bowl. They get themselves a brilliant quarterback in the draft, and they make it to the playoffs next year if you do this. So we'll see what happens. It's probably not going to happen, but that's what my view is like that. A couple weeks ago, the toxic fan base at the Marvels were dealt a hard hit when Tatiana Maslany, who played She-Hulk, there were people who were claiming that Ryan Reynolds cut her out of Deadpool and Wolverine because of her woke show in She-Hulk. First of all, Ryan Reynolds is not like that. And second of all, Ryan Reynolds really has no power to cut people from a movie that wasn't even directed by him. And Tatiana Maslany came out and said, yeah, it's not true. We never were offered, never saw a script, anything like that, her and Brie Larson. So it was all lies. Another lie people of the toxic fan base of the MCU were saying was that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was a huge, disastrous piece of crap that destroyed Disney Plus, was not a hit, whatever, did not make a profit. Well, turns out they actually made a profit after everything was counted and redone and stuff like that. Not a very big profit, but they still made $88,000, which is still profit that goes directly to that. So it might not be as big of a profit as other Marvel movies, but this film that everybody calls one of the worst MCU movies of all time made a fucking profit. So you can no longer use it didn't make a profit, so it sucks sort of thing. It made a profit. I will defend this movie again when I do my in defense of the MCU sometime down the line. Sometime next year, I'm going to hopefully work on it and get it done, but it's going to be a lot of work, and we'll see what we can do about that. Another thing to stick it to the haters about, and the toxic fan base, is Agatha All Along, which has been a huge bright spot for Disney Plus and came out of nowhere, really, because when it was first announced, all these toxic fan base people thought it was going to be a sucky show. Why do they have a show about that? Why are they even showing this? Why should we watch this? Whatever. And they were just already saying it was crap and it was a bomb and all this stuff. And then turns out it's a pretty damn good show. Critics and fans alike were on the same page about how good it is, with many scores up in the 90s and 80s for their cinema scores and stuff like that. Not really cinema scores, it's not cinema, but their rating scores that they use. And it's certified fresh by Rotten Tomatoes. But again, I don't really trust Rotten Tomatoes, but it was huge. And then Disney Plus released the viewership numbers, and it is one of the biggest viewed TV shows in Marvel MCU history, 4.6 million views of every episode. It finished up with a 2-hour, two-part finale on the 30th. And we watched all of them, and I'm going to do a quick review of all of them, the last 4 episodes. So the first of the 4 episodes we watched we got the history of Teen, where we learn how Billy Maximoff, Wanda's son, was able to come back to life. So we learned all about him and how he got to Agatha and how he became Billy and stuff like that, how he got his powers and stuff like that. So that was brilliant, and it was really good. And then we got blindsided with one of the absolute best TV shows, in my opinion, of all time, where we took a deep dive into Patti LuPone's character in Agatha, who has been spouting off all these weird asides and stuff like that during the previous episodes. And we find out the reason why is because she does not observe time in a linear manner. And the episode was filmed and shot and shown in all kinds of out of orderness, going back to her past as a child, to where they were at the end of the previous episode, to where they are in the future of that episode, like a half hour later in the episode, back to present day, back to some other stuff. And we discover all the stuff she was saying on the asides led to a tarot card reading that saved the day. And we didn't know when we watched it originally, we didn't know she thought she was some crazy woman, and she ended up sacrificing herself. One of the absolute best shows of all time. And we learned that Aubrey Plaza's Rio is actually the embodiment of death, which is not unusual in the Marvel Universe, because Death in the comics is an actual character who Thanos did the Infinity Gauntlet for to make her job easier. That's why he killed everybody in the galaxy, so she wouldn't have to work. She didn't like that very much because she liked to work. And then Deadpool somehow is able to marry her as well. She looks like Aubrey Plaza. Of course you're going to, but we find that out in that episode also. Patti LuPone did a fantastic job. The Out of Order episode was still easy to understand what was going on. They covered everything you needed to. You were never lost. Similar to We Live in Time, the Florence Pugh, Andrew Garfield film, which I keep pushing everybody to go see, had a similar sort of feel to it. It was a brilliant episode. Probably the best episode of Agatha, and one of the best TV shows of the MCU, and also one of the best TV shows in television history. So we finally watched 2 episodes. So they came out on 30th. We watched the one the 2nd. The one after Patti LuPone's character's death focused on the remaining witches, including Wiccan, getting back, or Billy Maximoff, I should say, getting to the end of the Witch's Road and trying to figure out what the last thing they have to do to get their greatest desire. And we also learned that Rio as Death has made a secret deal with Agatha to get the soul of Billy to come to hell, because he took over a dead body that she should have claimed, but he took it over and reanimated it, and she's kind of pissed about that. So we get to the end of the road, and they have to try to figure out what they need to do And Jennifer learns that it was Agatha who was the one that bound her without her powers. So she was able to get her powers back, which is what she wanted. And then she disappeared. And then Billy was trying to figure out where Tommy was and knew he was out there somewhere. And Agatha was able to kind of force him to create with his reality powers a way to get Tommy into how he survived, which was to get his sort of soul that's sort of floating around into a dead body of a child. And there was a kid that he saw at Agatha's urging to project his mind around to find someone who was being drowned as a prank, and actually did drown. And Tommy's body, supposedly from what it looked like, has entered it, and as he escaped and survived. So they don't know if that's actually the case. And then Billy disappeared, leaving Agatha by herself. And she had to figure out what the last bit was, and she had to plant something and make it grow. So she took from her locket what appears to be a lock of hair from her son and an eyelash, planted it, and was able to create a flower, and was able to escape the road. And she gets back up to her house, and Rio is waiting there for her and saying it's time to collect you. It's time for you to come. You're to die, to come to the other side. And Agatha didn't want to deal with that, so she tried to put up a fight, but Rio was too strong. And then here comes Billy Maximoff in his Wiccan costume, who comes in to try to save the day. And Agatha wanted her powers back, so Billy gave her some of his powers to jumpstart her missing witch powers, and she was able to get them and was able to hold death at bay a little bit. But then they had to make a decision, and Billy was one of the two of them had to sacrifice themselves to death, had to be taken. And so Agatha convinced Billy to do it, and then laughed in his face when he accepted, because that was her plan the whole time with death, the deal that they had made. But then Billy used his mind thing to say, what would Nicholas think, or whatever, what you did, Nicholas, is similar to what you did to me. And that pissed her off enough, and she was able to, she went up and she kissed death passionately, and then died and was buried in the backyard. And then death disappeared. And then Billy left Westview the way his mom did, in front of all the people who were like, what the hell is going on? He put his hood up and left. Got back to his house and took a shower. And he was only gone for 24 hours. So he was only on the road. It seemed like maybe forever, but he was only on the road for 24 hours. And then when he got back to his room, he started looking at stuff, and he sort of came to a realization that he created the road, the witch's road. And then he was surprised by a disembodied voice, and that's when the episode ended. The final episode started with a flashback to Agatha in 1750, get ready to give birth to her son Nicholas, but Rio appears as Death, and at that time she'd already had a relationship with him, because she called her my love. Can you spare some time? And Rio was just like, I can spare you a little bit of time, but not much. And Agatha was like, how much? And Rio didn't answer her. And then she gave birth to Nicholas. And then gradually Nicholas grew up. But before that, Agatha was using Nicholas as a con to steal witches' powers to make her more powerful. So she would bring the crying baby of Nicholas to witches that lived in the forest, who would offer food for both the baby and her, and then she returned their kindness by sucking their power out of them. And she did that all the time. So whenever she needed power, she would stumble upon a coven of witches or forest witches or whatever, convince them that she needed help or her son needed help, and then would suck the life out of them. And gradually he was getting older, 6, 7, 8 years old, and he was getting tired of her killing all the covens, and using him to try to get covens to come join them so that she could do that. We also learned that he and Agatha were the ones that created the Witches Road ballad, which became hugely popular. And so Nicholas started singing it and was making money in a way to get witches to come to Agatha and she can suck the life out of them. But he was getting tired of that, so he would not bring them back to his place or whatever. And eventually, where am I? The story, I had to pause for a second. So I'm sorry, I'm getting tired here. So eventually, while they're singing, they sang the song that became the Witch's Road song. And one night, Nicholas and Agatha are sleeping in the woods when Rio appears as Death and motions for him to come, but be very quiet, not to wake up his mom. So she kissed her and then went off with Rio, who took his body or his spirit, and left the dead body with Agatha. When she woke up, she discovered he was dead and buried him, and was singing the Witch's Road song when a local witch came up to Agatha and said, "Can you tell me about the Witch's Road? I know it's real. You sing the song about it." So she says, "We're going to need a coven," and they find the coven and they sing the song to try to open the door. And then when it doesn't open, she says, "You are the worst witches ever," and then sucks their power into her and they all die. And she turns the Witch's Road song into a con where she does it over centuries, where she sings the song and convinces the witches that about the Witch's Road, how it's real, and they create a coven to open the door. And then when it doesn't open, she blames them for being terrible witches and then sucks the life out of them and gains their power. Fast forward all the way up to when she got the more present day coven with Billy and all those, Billy and all those. But it was a con. So she was singing that song, and then when it didn't open, she was going to suck the life out of all the witches there. But Billy intervened, because not knowing that's what she was going to do, and the door opened, and he created the Witch's Road. So it was the first time any of them, Agatha had been on it, or he'd been on it, or whatever. And he did create it with his mind, using his reality bending powers he got from his mom. So the Witch's Road was a con set up by Agatha that when it became real, they had to go through with it and try to figure out what's going on. And then we get to present day, where the disembodied voice was the ghost of Agatha, who was haunting Billy. And so Billy decides to banish her, but ends up deciding to have her help him. And she ends up becoming his mentor on how to control his powers. And then her and Agatha who's a ghost now, say it's time to go after Tommy. And that's where the episode ended. So a great end to the series, a great series. Every episode was phenomenal. Even the first episode that goes a little slow and didn't have a lot to do with it. It was sort of a switch over from WandaVision, where it used a television show to tell the story, but then it led to what we get with the Witch's Road. Agatha All Along was a phenomenal series, and the haters got screwed in the end because it was a hugely popular show. A popular song, the Witch's Road song, is going up the charts, and it's phenomenal. Definitely check it out. Anniversary, 7 years ago, Fortnights had their first Fortnightmare. So that's cool. I got a page and a half left. I'm getting a little tired, so even though we do get an hour back, I got to get moving here. I think, let me just verify, she should be in there now. Let me just verify. Kamala Harris was supposed to go to Michigan, but her plane was diverted to New York City, and everyone believed that she was going to be on Saturday Night Live. Let's see if I can. Nothing on Facebook, which is interesting. So let's see if Twitter will give us a better idea. Yep. She was on Saturday Night Live. Yep. With Maya Rudolph. So she was using it as a last bit of campaigning. So there we go. I was right about that. So she was on Saturday Night Live. So that's pretty cool. And that's very good. So, congrats. I'm proud of her. Hopefully she's going to win. Natalie Portman and Jenna Ortega are set to star in The Galleryist, from the director of Birds of Prey, about, I guess, gallery owners who decide to sell a dead body. That's the only log line they gave us about that. Catherine Hahn received a plaque for being the first woman to show her butt in an MCU show or in the MCU in general. So that's kind of funny. Ignition Press is the name of my former employee, my former fellow employee, Philip Sablick's new comic book company. So proud of you, Philip. Congratulations. The Wayans brothers, who brought us the first two Scary Movie movies, are going to be doing the reboot of it. I'm Your Host. Jackie Earle Haley is set to star as a game show themed slasher, which you thought you saw everything. Well, you didn't. DC versus Marvel Omnibus is going to contain every single DC and Marvel crossover. There were a lot of them, and that's really cool. That should be good to see that. Trick or Treat is set to debut on 4K, or did debut on 4K this week. Queer trailer with Daniel Craig. I didn't watch it, but it's interesting. The Vatican unveils the official mascot for the Holy Year of 2025, named Luce, who is set to, I think they say, inspired by you can live life and pray to the Lord, whatever, also involving pop culture, stuff like that. Looks like a sort of an anime manga character. And Kevin Smith called it out because of the Buddy Christ stuff, but it's kind of interesting that they have created a mascot. William H. Macy has joined the cast of The Running Man, the new spinoff of that. Not spinoff, the new remake of the Stephen King book. Cranberry Blizz is Starry's new cranberry holiday soda out there. Coleman Domingo is directing and starring in a movie called The Madness. Trailer debuted this week. It's set to debut the 28th of November, which is Thanksgiving, on Netflix. I'm sorry, on Prime. Excuse me, on Prime. Johnny Depp is set to star with Penelope Cruz in a movie called Day Drinker, from Mark Webb, who directed the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. David Fincher has bought the rights to an American remake of Squid Game, which would be on Netflix, which is kind of stupid, but okay. A chef created the Minecraft burger, which is a square burger that when you cut the top off and you put everything inside, lettuce, tomato, cheese, onion, whatever in there, and then you put the top back on it and eat it that way. So that's kind of interesting. The War of the Rohirrim animated film set in the Lord of the Rings world is bringing back Christopher Lee to voice Saruman. Jumanji 3 has been announced. It's set to debut December 11th, 2026. Painter, Amber Midthunder, and Alan Richardson action film from the John Wick writer are going to star in that, from the John Wick writer. Landman trailer with Billy Bob Thornton and Demi Moore and Taylor Sheridan's new show. Debuted the trailer for that. The King of the Hill revival, which is coming soon, is not a remake, but instead is a sequel with the characters all aging and growing up and seeing how they are now 20-some years later. Hail Mary, the film based on the novel by the guy who wrote The Martian and stars Ryan Gosling, has finished filming, and is directed by the guys who directed the Lego movie, has finished filming. That Christmas trailer, the animated Christmas movie from Richard Curtis, set debut on Netflix on December 4th, debuted. It looks like another Christmas classic, not as good as Klaus, but it looks like it could be entertaining and it might be fun to watch. It's about like a small town where kids have to save Christmas, but all kinds of other side stories are going on. Their parents get lost in a blizzard, and Santa has to try to save the day during the middle of a blizzard, and all kinds of crazy stuff seems to be happening, but it looks really, really good, though. Benjamin Moore has the color of the year, and it is called Cinnamon Slate. I guess they're a painting company, and that's the color that they chose. Football news, Joe Flacco, former Ravens quarterback and now backup for the Colts, has now been placed as QB1 by the Colts after Anthony Richardson sort of bailed on them a little bit. So Joe Flacco will now lead the Colts until he cannot. And we're getting the start every week from them. And it starts this week where they have Sunday Night Football against the Vikings. So it'll be fun to see Joe on Sunday Night Football again. And the Washington Commanders have a commanding 6-2 record, and they won last week's game on a last second Hail Mary, which had to be seen to be believed. And now rumors are sprouting that with the trade deadline coming up, many huge stars who are interested in being traded, wide receivers, cornerbacks, all kind of stuff, have told their management quietly, look into the Commanders, see if we can get them to their team, because they seem to be the most exciting team out there now. So we'll see how that turns out. Anniversaries. Simpsons' first Treehouse of Horror debuted 34 years ago this week. Saw debuted 20 years ago this week. The Goosebumps TV show debuted 29 years ago this week. Ginger Snaps debuted 23 years ago this week. Last Night in Soho debuted 3 years ago this week. Quiz Show debuted 30 years ago this week, and Thinner debuted 28 years ago this week. Our final half page. This will be my last. Simpsons Chia Pet, which is sort of like the meme where Homer goes into the bushes. They're going to do one of those where Homer's in front of the bushes, and that's going to be the chia stuff that grows. The Love Hurts trailer is the first Ke Huy Quan action romantic comedy about a former killer who couldn't kill somebody that he kind of fell in love with and let her go. And then he ran off on his own, disappeared, changed his name, became a realtor. But now they're coming to find him, and he's got to defend the woman as they're coming after her too. I think I talked about this, but the Mandalorian film has finished filming and is not set to debut till 2026, which is weird since it finished filming in 2024. And I don't think it's going to take over a year and a half for special effects, but I could be wrong. But it's not set to debut until May 2026. And the Rey movie, The New Jedi Order, which sounded really, really awesome, lost their writer. So it's sort of in limbo right now, but I really think that should be cleaned up sooner than later. The actress Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, seems to be upbeat about it and thinks that it's going to happen. Michael Cera and Emilia Jones have also joined the Running Man remake as well. Prime Target First Look is a Prime, I guess, movie or TV show set to star Leo Woodall and Quintessa Swindell. So we had our first look at that since debut January 22nd. Denny's is set to be closing 150 restaurants in 2025, which is not good, and could be on its way to bankruptcy again. The shooting of the Highlander remake with Henry Cavill has been pushed back from January 2025 to May 2025 to accommodate Henry Cavill signing on for the Voltron movie, which is set to start filming December 2024 through April 2025. So I guess Voltron is overdoing the Highlander one. So Highlander was supposed to start filming in January, will not start filming until May. So it's crazy. PB&J Reese's peanut butter cups that come in either grape jelly or strawberry jelly is the newest one coming out next year, as is the red velvet Reese's peanut butter cup should be coming out next year as well. Could a samurai / Japanese culture theme be the new chapter of Fortnite? Rumors are abounding that that's what it's going to be. So that might be pretty cool. Before we get to the final story this week, we have a death. David Harris, Warriors starred the movie starred the movie Warriors, died at the age of 75. Anniversaries: Terminator 40 years ago this week. Halloween debuted 78, 88, 98, 2008, 2018, 46 years ago this week. Interstellar debuted 10 years ago this week. Leaving Las Vegas debuted 29 years ago this week. REM's album Up debuted 26 years ago this week. Not one of my favorites, so I'm not going to talk about that much. The TV show Millennium from Chris Carter, creator of X-Men of X-Files, debuted 28 years ago this week with Lance Henriksen. And The End of the Fucking World debuted 7 years ago this week. So the final, and Lady Bird, Greta Gerwig's first film with Timothée Chalamet, debuted 7 years ago this week. Finally, the last story of the week, a VR company has created a new immersive horror survival game called Escape the Titanic. So you are trapped in the Titanic as it's sinking, and you have to figure out a way to escape. Kind of intriguing, but there we go. So that is it for this first weekend in November. Next week, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be announcing that Kamala Harris will be the new president of the United States and that democracy has been saved. Let's cross our fingers and hope that's the case. I have a really good feeling that that's what's going to happen. But again, I'm also pessimistic because of what happened to Hillary, and we'll see what happens. If we lose, it's going to be a somber, horrific episode of Dylan Knows. I'll tell you that right now. If we win, it's still be a little bit upbeat, but it could be problematic because he's still going to be trying to overthrow the election. So it ain't over till it's over. All we can do right now is just vote. Be sure you vote. If you've never voted before, you can register to vote the day of election. You go up and they'll register you, and then you can vote that day. In Maryland anyway. Not everywhere does that, but Maryland does. I'll be voting on Tuesday. What else do we have going on? Also, Stranger Things Day is next week. We should be getting the first trailer for Stranger Things, which I think it is actually. So we might get our first trailer for Stranger Things new season. And also we'll be getting the new trailer for the Mission Impossible's new movie, also set to debut next year as well. So we shall have hopefully some good stuff to talk about next week, and hopefully not some bad stuff. I do have a list show I want to do, the top 30 films of 1994. We'll see if I can get to that eventually in the next couple of days. Plus, I want to do the best political movies right around the election. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition or not. But for now, this is all we got, a Dylan Knows episode, and hopefully that next week we can announce that Kamala Harris is the next president of the United States. It's going to be a tough week. It's going to be an anxiety-filled week, but hopefully we'll prevail. All right, y'all, thanks for watching, and don't forget to turn your clocks back an hour. So you get an extra hour to stay up or go to the bars or whatever. Will happen at 2 a.m., so that's about an hour from now. So actually 2 hours, because it'll go to about 3 o'clock, and then it goes back to 2 o'clock. So about in 2 hours, we should revert back to 2 o'clock, if you know what I'm saying.